that bill nicely. It's 2 municipalities, 2 different transportation entities, the turnpike and the railroad, businesses, goods, potato chips, and landowners. So it's quite a length of stream. If you go to the next one. Okay, in talking to the Cocalico Creek Watershed Association, they also suggested that there may be areas on Fry's Run, which is into that section of stream, that could be looked at in terms of doing some pollution reduction projects on some of the farms that are upstream from that. Map on the left, the red areas, the red lines show the little Cocalico Creek watershed. The blue ones are Cocalico Creek watershed. You can go to the next one. Just some pictures from along the stream. On the top there, the stream itself, the 2 on the top right are part of the floodplain. There's a lot of open dirt there that's been eroded from the water coming off the farm just above that. And so that area could use some stabilization. The lower left, around the farm that's there, Wendrick Farm, there is a stone wall that was created by clearing the farm so they could farm it. And so there's like over 1,000 feet of stone wall like that on the landowner's property, and all that stone could be used to actually construct part of the project. So part of the materials are already sitting on site. It's convenient. Bottom center is where one of the small tributaries comes in and rises to view of the railroad where it goes under the turnpike. So to get the project started, what we were looking to do, there is a community conservation grant from the Lancaster Clean Water Fund. It's a small grant ranging from $2,500 to $5,000. Would require a 1-to-1 match, and we're proposing to do work on some of the smaller streams flowing into it as an initial small first stage of the project. That wouldn't be very expensive, can be done fairly quickly, but at least would let us get going on the project. Part of that, we'd also be allowed to do scoping of the rest of the stream, where we figure out where the improvements are going to be needed, to try to figure out what's going to be done. That small grant we're looking at has a submission deadline of July 26th. This will be 18th. If we're going to try to do that, we need to get authorization to proceed with this. It's small enough in scope of actually putting the grant submission together that there's plenty of time in which to get it done. The meeting that we had discussing the project with all those various people also included the Lancaster Clean Water Partners, who are the ones offering this grant. So the person reviewing it was recommending that we submit it.
All right, so that's where the recommendation came, is that person that sat in the meeting on Thursday said you should apply for this grant. That's where it comes down to. So if this is an opportunity to do a mile of stream. There's about 1,500 miles of impaired waterways in the county.
There's a lot.
Somewhere along those lines, I might be rounding up or down a little bit too much, but it's somewhere in that number. There's some components to this. When Ken and I walked it, rail in particular might be able to get some rail monies, transportation monies, because the stream itself is actually washing into the rail bed. So from a security perspective, of actually maintaining the rail bed, that's kind of the skin in the game in particular that the rail has. Plus, they also have problems around the turnpike, where they pass underneath the turnpike. They have problems with how some of that water is getting piped around, which is causing washouts of the rail itself. So the rail, we got the ability to have the rail apply for grants that we normally wouldn't be able to do projects under the transportation
And
aspect.
also the turnpike, the landowner observed that there's scouring taking place on the support pillars on the turnpike's bridge. And so they're gonna be taking a look at that. If in fact that's the case, the turnpike then, rather than just being able to do a limited amount of work close to the bridge, get to do work 150 feet up and down from the bridge too. And so if that's the case, again, that would be another source of funding for this project.
And over the last, myself, Chris Flory, and Tony sat in a MS4 training session last fall, and we got to meet the MS4 coordinator for the turnpike. He was there, and Ken has been in discussion, Brent's been in discussion, Chris has got to know him very well over the last couple of months. They were looking for projects, and so we did offer our township as being receptive to hear what the turnpike might offer. This would be one of the 2 locations that they would be looking to be involved with. So that then gets turnpike monies involved here, so turnpike has their own MS4 program too. So we're talking about 3 different MS4 entities, turnpike, East Cocalico, and Denver Borough all being involved with it, and that would score very well from a grant funding perspective. And Turnpike is desperate because of their linear right-of-way to actually find places where they can do projects. And so this is kind of, everything's kind of falling in our lap all at the same time, where we got this many different people with this different many areas of monies that come in. So it doesn't just fall on us, or in this case, Denver Borough. And this could help Denver Borough meet their whole next 5-year goal to what we're talking about. It would be at least a significant credit for Denver Borough. So we'd have a very willing neighbor in terms of this whole process. So it's kind of coming together. The risks are, we could do the $5,000 study and really determine this is not a worthwhile project. If it's a bigger one we want to tackle someplace else. But I think is if the caveat is that the funding can come through, we would have a very good project. Anything more, Ken?
That's most of it. This would be something that, to get this whole mile stretch of stream organized, to get the planning, the funding, is a multi-year effort to get that going. It's not going to be happening right away. The credit we would get out of it would primarily go into our next MS4 permit cycle. But there was discussion at the meeting that DEP in some cases will let you sort of bank credit, so that if you do a pollution reduction project now, that you can save that credit and apply it to the next grant cycle. That's not confirmed yet, but it's a possibility that has been discussed.
So, Mr. Chair, if you are amicable as a board, the motion is to authorize the Township MS4 technician to apply for and execute grant funding requests as discussed.
Resolution board, I will make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any further questions?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
One question.
Yes.
Okay, the turnpike does stream restoration. Do we get credit for what they do?
It's a,
What would happen is, what would happen possibly, if this really gets legs, is it could become a joint MS4.
Yeah.
And there's actually some advantages to doing that. So the turnpike within our township limits would actually be shown in our plan, and we'd be shown in their plan. We have 2 sites. We have this site at Denver Borough. The other one is the one on Denver Road. That tract of land that's next to their 55 community that's up for sale right now. That's on the turnpike's radar screen now too. And so we have the opportunity of working together. That means you get their credits for doing it, but that means we also then take on their liabilities. But they have deeper pockets than we do. So no matter how you look at it, the fact that we get the turnpike involved would be more pros than cons. When we were looking at doing our last pollution reduction plan, DEP was really hostile because they just didn't know how to handle it, about having municipalities work together. They have sort of resolved that now because of some political pressure from both the state legislature on the Republican side and by EPA, surprisingly, on the other side. So they kind of heard it from both sides that the municipalities want to have the ability to possibly work together on some of these projects versus everybody being an island on their own. So with that kind of additional relief occurring where it's a lot easier to work together, I think in 5 years, if everything's all pieced together, we could possibly have a joint pollution reduction plan with the Turnpike, Denver Borough, and East Cocalico, and we would all basically benefit from the credits of this.
Thank you. Moving on, request sewer hookup, 280 Hill Road.
Well, there, just before that, Mr. Chair, we have the Black Horse discussion. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I forgot backwards, you're right.
Doesn't matter, we can do the other way. I don't care, I'm not gonna argue.
Well, if you don't mind, you got Mr. Patel here in the audience too. Shaker Patel's here. He represents the Black Horse. I'm going to pull up the concept plan behind you on the screen here. To orient everybody right now, obviously we're sitting right here in the Township building. This is the Pennsylvania Turnpike, 272. You have Pepperidge on this side, and we have the existing Black Horse track, which includes the hotel, the gas station, the antique mart, the reused store, and Branson restaurant at this location. While Mr. McCray was meeting with a whole bunch of people to talk about stormwater issues, we held a pre-planning meeting that involved board members and the planning commission, the developer, and staff. The board members were there to just listen only, did not deliberate or actually participate in the discussion. And the opportunity now is to actually talk about what you heard in that meeting, so that we are fully compliant with the sunshine law. But what was discussed, and has been discussed in the last couple of public meetings, is that with this developer coming to the township, there is an opportunity for us to revisit our Act 209 study and our capital improvement plan on how we are addressing issue with Hill Road, which right now is planned to have a signal and some other monies to basically extend it all the way to the Turnpike Bridge on Pepperidge Farm. That was what was in the original capital improvement plan. What we talked about at our last possible meetings was that really is no longer practical. Pepperidge has plans for that tract land that would really be adverse to this project, and I have no doubt that Pepperidge would oppose this project as currently shown in our Act 209 study. So with that knowledge that we had, when Mr. Patel came forward in February with this project, we saw an opportunity to relook at how we are administering our Act 209 study and how we are going to address that issue that we need a traffic light at Hill Road, but also address the issue that we will not have a willing partner in Pepperidge with the current plan. So what was originally talked about in February and March in the public meetings is actually running a connection roadway right down the property line of the Black Horse closest to Hill Road, which would have been just offset of where the current Pepperidge driveway is. That was good in concept, but from a very practical perspective, a cost perspective, and a long-term perspective, it was probably not the best option. But it was at least got the discussion started and going. When this option was presented to staff a couple of weeks ago ahead of the pre-planning meeting, all the parties came back to realize that this is probably hands down the best option. It actually puts the signal just about 1,000 feet from Denver Road. It allows Pepperidge in the future to maximize their ability to develop this tract of land up here by allowing them to have the ability to shift their access road down, and that would give them the ability to put another 100,000 square feet of building up here, which is what they were looking to do. So it has the potential to do that. If they decide not to go forward with the project, their driveway can stay here as long as it needs to be at this point. It's not necessarily needed for the project, given that there's another signal that they have access to with Cocalico Boulevard now. So this access roadway would actually become a public roadway. It would be turned over to the township And then this would also be a public roadway on township land. And it would connect to Hill Road. There'd be a stop sign control here, more than likely some sort of stop sign control here, and then you would come to a signalized light. So it would allow traffic that is right now having a difficulty during the daytime hours of making lefts. It would give them the ability to get to a traffic light and make it left easily. In the evening hours and overnight hours, it's our proposal that PennDOT would not restrict this, make this right in, right out, because then people can easily make turns, so there's no reason for them to go to the signalized light. So that would be what would be initially proposed to PennDOT with this. But this would involve making a change to the capital improvement plan. Because right now what is proposed is roughly a $250,000 signal here, and then roughly $1.2 million extending a new roadway from that signal through Pepperidge Farm tying to the bridge. What would be proposed is eliminating that roadway and leaving that as owned by Pepperidge. And like I said, they can maintain this here, or someday when they develop their site, they can tie in down to this location. And instead of having those monies build a roadway on here, it would go to the construction of this entire roadway. The mechanism for making that happen is there's Act 209 impact fees that would be assessed on this property. And what by Act 209 law is written is that when an Act 209 eligible property work is being done by a developer, they can claim a credit. So what they would do is they would be able to claim the credit up to the amount that they will be paying for Act 209 fees, not above and beyond. And that would be the credit for this part as well as for the traffic signal. This part would be paid for in some measure by Act 209 funds. A little bit of debate right now about where that limit might be. Ideally, we would do it at the property line here, and this would be Act 209, and the developer would pick up all the rest of this. It really is going to depend on what the developer's Act 209 fees are, as well as what PennDOT makes them do at Denver and Carlisle Boulevard, which is also Act 209 eligible, so they'll be able to claim credits for that too. My gut is that their credits will give us enough that they will build this part, put the signal in, and they will do improvements at Denver and Carlisle Boulevard, and that will completely exhaust their monies, and then they will be doing additional work to meet the PennDOT permit at Colonel Howard and Denver Road. And so that they will then come back and look at the township to do this part. But that's to be worked out when we actually see what all the numbers come. This is not the same traffic level as what has been proposed by Benderson. Benderson is currently a farm field. This site has existing uses on it. And from an Act 209 perspective, the hotel there gets a credit, Ransom Restaurant gets a credit, the reuse it store gets a credit, the antique store gets a credit. All of those are existing traffic generators that would come out of what the proposed uses are. What's proposed is a fast food restaurant of some sort at this location here, a small truck stop, which we're very well aware is needed in the township, which will give a place for all the trucks that are parking all over the place in the township, a place to wait as they wait for their turn to get to the Acme site. A hotel roughly in this location, some sort of business use. There was just a placeholder of a daycare here, another business use here, and then some light industrial uses that would require some rezoning or some text amendments in order to make that happen. The other component is right here would be a potential map change, moving this from commercial and actually zoning this as residential so that those lots then can tie into Heatherwoods. With there being a large stream and wetlands here, that commercial is not practical at all for it to be commercial. So that's kind of an overview of the sketch plan and then how it ties into the Act 209 study. This is an opportunity to completely redevelop the site. Mr. Patel has a very good reputation throughout the county with his family and their business with a number of sites they've developed. Obviously, he's currently developing right now the True Denver Hotel, which is looking really nice, very, very millennial at this point. So we have that going in, and then this would be addressing the Black Horse, which also at this point needs to be upgraded and replaced. So it's great to have a willing developer who's very open-minded at this point, looking at different options. And so that was what was presented in the pre-planning. That was what you were not allowed to deliberate on. So now is your opportunity to finally talk, now that the audience is kind of here to hear the summary of what was discussed in the pre-planning.
Well, my thoughts after we had that meeting was, you know how I feel in terms of strategically, we need to develop as quickly as we can. And I encourage this kind of development. I'm happy to see it. But you know me well enough now that it's probably going to move too slowly for my taste. So Mr. Patel, the faster we can get it done and the more we can help, I personally, that's what I believe.
And I would echo those comments. I think it's a good use of changing things around. It's a good use. You propose some good ideas. If you lived here long enough, Hill Road has been a thorn in everybody's side. At certain times of the day, to turn left, it's easier to go through the parking lot of the restaurant and come out up near the gas station to make a left-hand turn and sit out here and wait. And the state has not, the road doesn't warrant putting a turn signal there right now, it never has, and every time we try it, it doesn't meet the warrants, so they plant their feet in the ground and say, no, there's not going to be a signal at Hill Road. So this is a good proposal, and as Scott indicated, you know, what you propose to do will also help Pepperidge Farm in their endeavor because they do want to expand over there. So, you know, we shift the road around, we do some things out a little bit outside the box, so to speak, and yeah, it's a win-win. I see it as a win-win, so thank you.
I concur with the other two supervisors. Thank you. I think it needs to be redeveloped, and I don't think it's going to generate that much more traffic.
It's nowhere, as I was coaching you guys, it's nowhere near what Betterson was originally proposing.
But the one thing I would like to clear the air on right now is, we all sat in here and Scott used the word truck stop. This is going to be a scaled down version of what we typically know as a truck stop. And I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it's going to be something that would hold probably less than 20 rigs, if I am correct, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I think the 20 rigs, it wouldn't be like the ones you see on interstates, which have like 200.
Right.
That's a massive number, but depending on who the end user could be, it could be 20 to 40.
And I wasn't trying to limit it to 20, but you spoke well of the 200. It's not some mega thing. That's not the proposal.
Yeah, and that actually, Doug makes an excellent point. In the discussions that we had heard during that meeting, I think it's important to clear the air and echo what Doug is saying in that it really is just another Sheets, Rudders type setup with additional parking for the 18-wheelers and fuel for diesel. That's really, so we're using the word truck stop, we shouldn't be doing that. It's really just a larger type Sheets, Rudders, that type of facility that we're used to seeing.
I just didn't want anybody to run out of the building and start
Say-
spreading vicious rumors.
Truck stop here.
But it's also addressing the issue. We have trucks all over the place. And because we have one of the largest distribution centers in the country here with Acme. And we know that Acme is very strict on when the trucks can't arrive with a manifest. If they arrive too early or too late, they get fined. So the trucks park all over the place so they can hit that gate at the right time. And by giving them a easy in and easy out location where they can park or get coffee or something while they're waiting for their turn is absolutely critical. Because we gotta get the trucks off of these local streets that are as occurring in the township. And that's why, from my public safety, public relations thing, I think that's we call it truck stop, we call it a oversized sheets. What it's gonna do is it's gonna get trucks off of the roads where we don't want them, where the residents don't want them, we've been complaining about. And it's gonna give them a place where they can park their rigs while they wait for their time. That's a huge positive for the township to address that issue. That has been an issue that's been around since Super Value, Acme, then Super Value, back to Acme again. The distribution center has been in place, there's been a problem with trucks all these years, and when we did the right thing about limiting trucks, not making trucks permitted to park along Colonel Howard Boulevard, all that did was cause the trucks to go everywhere else in the township. So we eliminated the truck parking along Colonel Howard Boulevard, and that means they count other places. And some of them were even less desirable than Colonel Howard Boulevard.
And to add to that, we've even seen, that was one of the other discussions that was held during this meeting, was we're even seeing, and I'm sure everyone's familiar with it, you're seeing the trucks parking now from a safety perspective, they're all along 222. Right behind where Quail Hollow is and that farmer's field right there. Friday morning, I personally, when heading up to Allentown, I've counted 7 of them all lined up parking overnight. So it's spilling over quite a bit.
And the Comfort Inn does have truck parking, but the problem with the Comfort Inn location is trucks can't get back out once they go. So they will not utilize that site, even though there's a very large parking lot where they can do it. They need a light, and that's what this comes with. You know, for a truck to use it, they need to have easy access in and out. You just can't do that with the Comfort Inn Center.
I also asked Mr. Patel for Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. I'd love to get them there.
We all would.
We all would.
So that would not be a pass-through traffic. That would be a destination traffic.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too to take into account. What Benderson originally, if you guys recall, Benderson was 2,000 p.m. peak hour, roughly. Traditional 3 big box stores, a bunch of medium-sized stores, 4 restaurant locations in the front. Almost all of those were destination items. When you have a Sheetz or Rudders, or a TA Express, whatever comes in there, and when you have a fast food, those are not by default really destinations. People can go out of their way and say, I want to go to the truck stop. They're going there because they're driving by, it's in the area. They're not coming from Brecknock to go hit the truck stop, or going from West Chicago to hit a McDonald's or something like that. So this really is not the big traffic generator that we had seen. So it's a really good use at this location. We get the T Express or something there. We get probably McDonald's, because they're the ones that are most interested in the township to see what Mr. Patel can drum up. But we've known McDonald's has been trying to find a location here for over 15 years based off their market study. And then a hotel itself would probably be one of the few that would be truly a destination where people are coming here to go to the hotel. So it's a really good, for the 3 primary uses that are proposed here, it's a good use of the site. So with that, I don't know if you have any audience questions too, but if not.
Any questions, the audience?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. With the proposed waste management or thing that you proposed over there close to Acme, would you consider making more parking because you're going to have more trucks down the road if you don't take it all in consideration? Then the second question, where exactly on Hill Road does that exit?
It's kind of hard to see in the screen because it's lighter, the background stuff is lighter. But this new proposed roadway would split the difference between the Pepperidge driveway and the Turnpike Bridge.
Yep, on Hill Road, where does it propose to exit?
Hill Road would be at the township property line. It's where you see the
That's
fence
a
line
fence.
out here today, that's where it would come down. They'd run along the fence. And it'd be roughly about the same width as Hill Road. It would only get wide in the development section. The rest of it would be kind of like Hill Road is today.
Well, as long as you plan ahead so we don't end up like Ephrata.
That's where our 209 study is designed for, to be honest with you.
That's a nightmare.
Yeah. There is, the township does have, there's been critiques of the Act 209 study, but the township has a very good game plan for the 272 corridor, the Colonel Howard Boulevard corridor, the Denver Road corridor, and the Church Street corridor, with the Act 209 study.
And the proposed project over there close to the turnpike for the waste station, when is that supposed to be in?
They have a 2 to 3 year permitting process for DEP, so we won't even see land development plans here for 2 or 3 years.
But in turn, that's going to develop a lot more truck traffic too.
It will, but most of that truck traffic will be just like the super value, with exception that won't have the issue of trucks waiting. They'll be taking around the spot.
But it still compounds the scenario.
It will, around the interchange itself, is going to be introducing more trucks, about 40 to 50 new trucks a day.
They're basically most of those trucks would come from either 222 north or south or the turnpike.
Right, and
they're
I
gonna
understand,
transfer that stuff from there to Harrisburg, so they're gonna get back on the turnpike and head up through.
and I understand, I'm just saying, just think ahead, because that's going to impact what you're trying to do right now.
That's a good point.
A little bit. Yeah.
This is a long motion, but it's done on purpose. The motion is to authorize the two associates to update the Act 209 capital improvement plan, CIP, to reflect the changes proposed for the Black Horse redevelopment site by creating a new bypass road that connects Hill Road and Route 272 with a new signal at the bypass road and Route 272. This change will supersede and replace the proposed Hill Road extension and signal at Hill Road and 272 as shown in the 2015 capital improvement plan update.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
So what you will have in about a month or two will come back before you, and you will adopt an update to the capital improvement plan once that work has been done. They have to run a cost estimate as to what it actually costs to build that road, that entire road, put the signal in. It won't take long. And then there's that formal action of adopting it, and then the capital improvement plan gets posted on the township website.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you get a Chick-fil-A, I'll thank you again. Okay, moving on. Sewer hookup for 280 Hill Road.
Mr. Chair, we had this request come in. It was reviewed by the authority. It is outside the authority area, but the authority has no opposition to this request. And the homeowner obviously is making a request that they need the sewer hookup because of this issues that they're having with the existing system. So you have it's kind of a handwritten request, kind of not the clearest to read, but the motion is pretty simple. Its motion is to approve the 280 Hill Road sewer hookup as requested.
And just for a point of clarification, the authority has no objection to this so long as it meets with their approval process, it meets their procedures.
Yeah, they'll have to negotiate and get the sewer hookup and do all the work. This is the R and the involvement, and then now the homeowner is going to be done with the authority going forward.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second the motion. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Resolution 2019-14, video game terminal exemption.
This one is for a board discussion. Obviously, we just talked about the other project a moment ago. As you know, the House or the governor signed into law allowing video gaming terminals to be installed at truck stops. Truck stops is very liberally interpreted, so a lot of facilities do not need to do too many changes to also be called a truck stop. So the truck stop does not mean 200 parking spaces, the big TAs and stuff like that. A truck stop could be a sheets, a rudder, something of that size and nature. There was a lot of opposition to that because it completely bypassed the municipal planning code, and the municipalities and PSATs pushed back that was a wrong thing for the state legislature to do, and the state legislature basically brought in an exemption. which is similar to the Class 4 casinos, where the municipality opts out, they send a letter to the video, or to the gaming commission, stating that they desire to opt out. And that means that it cannot just automatically come in. It would have to go through the township process and get the township approval to come in. For automatically right now, it could just come in. So by adopting this resolution, basically you are basically restating the township's ability to control and regulate. And it would have to have township approval to come in. It would not be a by right, they could just come in and do it without any approval of the township.
So we could approve it later on.
It would be, like I said, it puts the approval process back in the board. It does not permanently prohibit it. The way the law is written, it has the ability for the municipality to undo this, which is basically gives you the control of how and what comes in.
So for clarification, basically what this is with the video game terminals, right now, there is a blanket, a very broad blanket of they can move in at any time, under any condition, for any various size, no matter what.
And in any location.
And in any location,
So
any
like-
size, any
So
location.
the Turkey Hill down there could put,
In theory, now.
In theory.
I- I-
In theory,
Just
yeah.
no, we don't,
Correct.
so we don't get it missed with the
No.
audience, that it would not work at the Turkey Hill as it's configured, it's too small.
too small, but
Yeah,
I mean,
they'd have to make some expansions.
But theoretically, the blanket is there.
yeah.
So,
So if we do this, we control where they can come in.
right, if we do this, then what it is the broad blanket is now under our control
Yes.
in terms of anyone who does want to do the video game terminals, they come to us for a request, and then we would directly authorize that
It's a
request.
case-by-case.
It's a case-by-case basis. Excellent point, yes.
So like the truck stop wanted them, then,
They'd have to come plead their case.
yeah, then we get approved
So
there.
if a very large convenience store that services trucks.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a very broad definition, staying away from the truck stop concept, but a large truck-based convenience store
Convenience store.
were to come in and meet the requirements of the law, which is not too hard to meet, then yes, they could do the video game terminals unless you have this in place and you have a say whether and when and how they do that.
Okay, what's the wish of the board?
Well, you know, we passed something like this not long ago, I don't know, say long ago, what was it, about a year and a half?
About a year and a half, maybe.
We were against it then,
Mm-hmm.
and my opinion hasn't changed.
No, I don't either.
So, I say, as far as I'm concerned, we opt out of this thing and say, if you want to come in and apply for it, then you have to come in and plead your case.
I
That's the
agree.
proper term, opt out.
It's right now, it's opt out.
Mhm.
I make a motion to opt out.
Which is consistent with what you've done in the past.
Mhm. I think the local government should have control over this.
Right, and I think what you're saying, Doug, just for clarification, is we're not 100% eliminating.
No.
We are just specifically
Controlling it.
willing to look at it on a case-by-case
It
basis.
should be controlled by the local government, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So your formal motion, and I would recommend you do some public comment, your formal motion is to adopt resolution 2019-14 to exempt video gaming terminals as discussed.
That's my motion.
Any comments or questions? Did you second it there?
No, you seconded it.
You did,
You did.
Okay. Senior moment. Any comments or questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Managers report.
Not really have a chance to prepare a manager's report. Give you a couple very brief updates. Obviously, we just dedicated the roadways. We're in the process of putting this legal agreement together with Berkshire Homes to address the issues that are occurring right now with Heatherwood Lane, especially with my pending departure. I thought it would be good to get that in writing by all parties so that there's no misconceptions or misperceptions down the road. that. We've already had an email from their attorney that just came in yesterday with that agreement. Tom and I need to take a look at it, probably make a couple changes to it, and it would more than likely be ready for the board to adopt at the August 1st meeting. Once that agreement's in place, then the road crew will go out and start the very needed patching at this point. Even for what we marked out last month, we're talking about another full size of this whole desk area of right up the center curve in that roadway. It is really starting to fall apart fast, and we really do need to get out there and start doing some repairs. So that's going to be a major focus in the week ahead. As you were aware at your last meeting, you authorized me to start the interim manager search and hiring process. That has been going well, as I've been keeping you guys informed as the candidates. We have 2 prospective candidates that have expressed interest. I've just started to get some feedback from both of them yesterday. 2 Davis has responded back yesterday. I will have some information to present to you early next week for some continued discussion, and more than likely for a board meeting within. We have 2 very outstanding individuals, which surprised me because I thought you how difficult it's going to be, that we have 2 good candidates at this point. But that is moving forward, just for everybody's record, and it does look like we'll have a pretty good handoff and transition that will occur between manager and interim manager in August because of that. So we are on schedule with that plan. Following the transition plan, one of the next things would be to actually start putting together the plan to hire a new manager. The goal is to have the interim manager and the township manager both prepare that and put that together. So obviously the interim manager will be the one that will then have to execute it. So next week, at some time, I would anticipate that would start occurring, where the interim manager and the manager will start preparing a plan for how we're going to hire the next manager at East Cocalico Township. So that's on track right now and progressing. The other thing, kind of wrapping up some loose ends, we are moving forward, trying to wrap up the Nancy Hess stuff. I did put in your office, you guys have a hard copy as well as a PDF of an updated employee manual that's been redlined. She, in the meantime, is making my changes and business changes, but then we're going to need your feedback. So trying to fast track it, she's changing while you guys are reviewing. And then we'll get your additional comments and we'll make another second round of changes. If we can keep it on the fast track, then there will be an employee meeting in probably the 3rd week of August to introduce the draft manual after we've gotten all the board feedback and the feedback that's occurred on the township side. After that employee meeting, then there will be one final change, and it will more than likely be adopted by the board after I'm gone in September. It's kind of a schedule for it to stay on the fast track. If you guys slow it down a little bit, then it'll be adopted sometime in the fall. But I want to try to get it in August pretty close to being ready for adoption. The employee review process and the job descriptions, which meeting with the employees next week to introduce the process and to go over the job descriptions with Nancy. So there's some one-on-one time each of the employees are going to have with Nancy. We're kind of doing it in a group format. So we got the road crew going first on Tuesday, and then we're doing the front office staff and Liz, and then we're going to do the zoning office and Ken class on that day. Going over the reviews, what the review forms, each review form was tailored for each position. Is definitely subject to debate and discussion, so the boards get to put some input, and I'm going to put some of my input into it with Nancy here. But we should be in place to do employee reviews in August, which is ultimately the goal. That's been requested by a couple of employees with the changes coming that they get a review before the end of August. So that should be in place for having those reviews and job descriptions. So my promise to you is kind of trying to wrap Nancy stuff, Hess stuff up, or my goal will be to have the job descriptions, employee reviews in place and completed by the end of August, and the employee manual in a pretty good shape at that point to be adopted in the fall by the board. There's a couple other miscellaneous loose ends that we're working on. There was a meeting with Becker Engineering and with Ritu to do an engineering handoff with me. So I handed off some of the work back to Ritu that I've been doing for the last 2 years. Ritu's also going to take a very active role in managing the Black Horse site, and as well as Benderson. That will be, Ritu will be fully responsible for the Benderson site, just like it was in the past. So when Benderson comes back in, and I did get an inkling that Benderson of some sort will be coming back in. So by our August meeting, there might be some announcements based off a phone call that I took. I believe RC also got a similar phone call yesterday. There was a call that took where there might be another party that is interested in actually buying the site and moving forward with it. That's more local, a little bit smaller scale. But local is relative. We're talking local being New Jersey and Pennsylvania. We're not talking about a small developer, but we're not talking about a national developer, which is what we have with Henderson. And that's some of the hesitancy with that moving forward is it's not a big enough project by Benderson standards. Benderson's typically is 1 million square feet, not 400,000 square feet of facility. So you're talking about something that's significantly larger than what, or smaller than Benderson typically does. And that's, I think, the frustration that Tony and I and Kim Fiedler on Benderson's side have had over the years is that's the corporate end of Benderson's not willing to jump forward with this. And as we know, the big box stores moving forward here at this location anyways now. What was really proposed, this has to be a new plan at this point coming in. And so there's a prospective developer that's willing to come in with a new plan and take over the site. It would probably be along the lines more of like what we just saw for the Black Horse, where you have some fast food, commercial, probably a hotel, and then you're going to have maybe light industrial slash business in the background, which is a much better fit than throwing a Lowe's and a Sam's Club and what at that time was supposed to be a Giant. So that's going to be, hopefully there is going to be some movement that's actually a serious conversation with the developers actually really going to look to purchase or at least get agreement of sale underway for that property, and we should actually see some movement on that one too. So that would fall under Ritu again, back to why that Ritu would be the one, and that would be, like I said, potentially a whole new one, maybe even a different zoning when it gets said and done, instead of having the business zoning that we have there right now, which probably will not fit with what really needs to occur at the site now. So those are a lot of the major items that have occurred. I will be out this afternoon, tomorrow with PSATs. And obviously we got next meeting coming up in August, and that will be my final meeting. So that concludes my manager's report.
Thank you. Public comment.
I got a couple things I'd like to run by if I could. First off, RC had asked me to come back here to this meeting to give you an update on the helipad and what it's been servicing here for the first 6 months of the year. Currently, we have used that thing 36 times for the first half of the year. That is going to be substantially higher than we've probably ever had. We've usually been in the 40s for a year total. So the addition of that helipad has been very good.
So January to now, 36 times.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and that's
So
been
you're on track to double the landings.
Yes, I would say that's probably a fair assumption.
Okay.
It's been anything from premature births to stroke patients to people with mechanical hearts getting transferred out to other hospitals. So it has been used very heavily since it's been put in.
So it's been a tremendous benefit to the community and our neighboring communities.
Correct. Second thing, and maybe the chief already has addressed this a little bit internally, with the accidents that have been happening on 222, we've actually been taking over a lot of the traffic on 272 when these are going on for long durations. We found out while we were doing that we do not have keys to the signal boxes for the traffic controllers. And nobody in any of the East Cocalico departments do not have any, but everybody else seems to. So we were requesting if it's possible that the fire departments can get copies of them keys to get into them boxes, so we don't have to keep going after the police department to drag them away to open up 6 or 8 controller boxes and deal with it.
in the end. So that
Do you,
is,
do you keep a chain of custody on those control box keys, or is it not necessary?
Right now, we're the only ones that have them, being in the police department.
Department,
So
okay.
if they go out, I'm comfortable that there's not gonna be any issues. It would be given to the fire departments and the chiefs.
Okay.
That shouldn't be a problem at all.
Oh, yeah, but we will definitely need to have some control.
Oh, yeah.
What has happened with some I'll be honest, and I'm not saying our fire department would do this, but somebody feels they know how the better time signals than, a lot of us, what the signal controls will go in there, you can actually change the timing of the signal, and that has happened with some rather creative people where they've changed the timing, and sometimes that works out well, and other times not.
I don't know if the part that we have access to has that. I believe we only have the ability to turn them on or off and blink.
Well, I think.
You don't have to operate the light. You can do whatever you want with it.
Well, just, I don't know if they can get into the entire panel, I think it's just.
Yeah, I think we have a little window access there with the jail key, I think. We can't
So
get
we'll talk about what, there is, surprisingly, there's only one key for all these boxes.
Yes,
It's a
we
master
learned
key.
that.
It's a one key fits all. But
Like the old patrol cars.
and you can actually use that key on any municipality. So-
Yeah, that's what we learned with doing this, how the other municipalities seem to be able to get into them.
Yeah, well, if somebody has a key, they can go into, down Effort and open up the signals. And
That's actually had to do with Open Sun was effort at Adamstown, that open one.
So,
I think it's a good idea. What I would like to see though is at least when you get a copy of the keys, I'd like to see a chain of custody form that's filed with us here at the township, and so that the chief has a copy also, just so we know, example, there's 4 keys out there.
Number
Those
or
4
something.
keys are assigned to
Yeah.
these 4 people, or to this piece of apparatus or whatever, just so
We
we
don't
know.
have no issue with that on our end, I don't believe.
Okay.
I would kind of agree, given that these keys can be used anywhere.
Yeah.
When you have a key, you can go and you can open up any other signal box in the country.
Yeah, so if you start changing the streetlights in Manhattan, we'd like to know who had access to that.
Yeah. All right, then the last thing that I kind of want to discuss a little bit with you, and this ties in a little bit with Scott's moving on here. The fire department's had been meeting with Scott on and off here over the last couple months about different things, some grant processing and some other things. And I personally don't want to see that stop when Scott leaves. We're looking to purchase some air packs and some other things through the grant. So I was curious if you guys had tantalized the thought of maybe starting another working committee for the fire service and keep that process alive. As you know, we've been in here talking to you guys, and money's hard to come by. Grants seem to be the way to go, and it works much better when it comes from the township level and involves multiple organizations. You guys have agreed to do that already. So we want to keep that process going, however we seem to make that happen. So my thought was maybe starting another working group for that, and maybe eventually as that group progresses, the ambulance thing gets straightened out, they can get brought on, and maybe the police department can get brought on in the future and get things more working together as a township-wide thing. I know RC's kind of been our contact for that process. So if you guys are open to that thought, maybe forming that committee and getting that thing started so we can keep that moving on.
I would echo what he's saying. I mean, and that's like East Hemphill, we have our public safety working group that does the exact same thing as what we're talking about here. And so we were kind of modeling, we're just taking the baby steps of getting the manager and the 3 fire chiefs meeting regularly and discussing issues, and it would be good to broaden that. We are also, the interim manager, I have a checklist with the interim manager that we're going to go through. Fire, EMS is actually on the checklist, and it would be my thought that the interim manager would also be involved with that group too. Especially with it usually being day lunchtime meetings, it's not as a result of another nighttime meeting when we meet with the fire chiefs. So I think that'd be a wise thing to do going forward.
Yeah.
Maybe our August 1st meeting, because we'll have fire back on as old business. That could be something that we would talk about and formalize that as an agenda item.
And that August 1st meeting is a morning meeting again. Just sort of aware.
I believe that's it.
Any other public comments? Okay, thank you. I have some announcements. The Cocalico Leaders Meeting is in Denver Borough, Tuesday, July 23rd at 7 p.m. Our next board meeting, you want to advertise this too, will be Thursday, August 1st, 9 a.m. Next Thursday, we have executive session here at 2:30 in the afternoon.
So just check it, if we 1 o'clock in the afternoon is the executive session.
Oh, it's at 1 o'clock now?
Yeah, 1 o'clock Thursday, next Thursday.
I won't be at that. Regional leaders.
There's a management meeting for,
Oh, the management meeting.
meetings at 2:30, their executive session will be first and their management meeting.
Oh, I misread that.
Yeah.
Okay.